FBI arresting far more Americans and targeting Muslims than Muslims targeting Americans. As President Trump and supporters continue the push to levy an arbitrary travel ban from a smattering of predominantly Muslim countries, a debate rages in the United States about the validity and effectiveness of preventing terrorism by strangling immigration. Now, simple data can put that debate to rest. Since January 2015, the FBI has also arrested more anti-immigrant American citizens plotting violent attacks on Muslims within the U.S. than it has refugees, or former refugees, from any banned country, writes Nora Illingson for Lawfare. Illingson would know, too, after having worked for the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Counterterrorism Division for 5 years. She left for Harvard Law School, but has tracked statistics closely for Lawfare since. And Illingson remains cagey to unreported information. She knows what is likely taking place behind the scenes, even when it either isn't or hasn't been disclosed to the public. In a recent article titled, "It's Not Foreigners Who Are Plotting Here, What the Data Really Show," Illingson explains, the program on extremism at George Washington University has routinely published statistics indicating that the vast majority of individuals charged in the U.S. with offenses related to ISIL are U.S. citizens. When considering all terrorism offenses, that claim holds up. 80 of the 97 suspects arrested in the past 2 years, or more than 82%, are American citizens. Most of those, notably, are not naturalized citizens of the U.S. citizens. Only 6 were naturalized. In other words, more than 76% of individuals arrested by the FBI over the past 2 years for terrorism-related offenses were U.S. citizens as a result of having been born in the United States. Americans present a far greater threat to Americans than immigrants from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Libya, Yemen, or Somalia, the named countries in Trump's disputatious ban. But even naturalized U.S. citizens haven't committed or plotted to commit acts of terrorism on American soil. According to the aforementioned statistics, 2 of 6 naturalized citizens emigrated from Bosnia, which didn't make the list, nor did Israel, staunch U.S. government policy driver, and original home of the third naturalized citizen, who had been convicted on charges of terrorism previously. Nihad Rozik and Medihemedi Solkasivic, Illingson continues, emigrated to the U.S. from Bosnia, a country not on Trump's list. While in the United States, the government alleges that Rozik and Solkasivic raised and sent money to individuals fighting with ISIL in Syria and Iraq. Both men contributed money from their personal savings, while other members of the conspiracy sent supplies including tactical gear. At one point, Rozik attempted to leave the country to join ISIL as a fighter overseas. Neither subject plotted an attack in the United States. Another naturalized citizen, Razmi Yousef, came to the United States from Israel, a country that's really not on Trump's list. Ode's case is unique. She was charged with immigration violations for failing to disclose a previous terrorism conviction in Israel. Now 68 years old, Ode was convicted in Israel for her role in the 1969 bombings of a supermarket and the British consulate in Jerusalem, which were carried out on behalf of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, PFLP. In the past 2 years, Ode is the only convicted terrorist to slip through the cracks and immigrate to the United States. However, the indictment makes no charges that she was engaged in any sort of terrorist activity while living in the Chicago area. Here's where the statistics get really interesting. While the remaining 3 naturalized citizens did, indeed, emigrate from nations Trump takes issue with, but not for anything pertaining to his ostensible terrorism concerns. 2 men, one from Iraq, the other, Syria, were not charged with material support to terrorism, but with making false statements to law enforcement, and nothing in the public court documents suggests that either subject engaged in attack plotting in the United States. Exactly one naturalized citizen from the travel blacklist engaged in activity related to terrorism, as Illingson explains. Of the 6 naturalized citizens on our list, there is exactly one from a newly banned country who was charged with material support to terrorism. Abdirahman Sheikh Mohammed emigrated to the US from Somalia. In April 2014, Mohammed traveled from Ohio to Istanbul and onward to Syria, where he received weapons and explosives training. In June 2014, Mohammed returned to the US, where he told an acquaintance that he wanted to attack a military facility or a prison, killing US military members. So, if perpetually paranoid Americans aren't threatened by immigrants from the apparently sinful 7 countries, who should they fear? Our politicians say they'll stop these killers. They talk about building walls and vetting refugees. If we were serious, we would do it. We would seal our borders against North Carolina, Slate's William Satan implored. North Carolina? It sounds absurd. When we think about immigration and terrorism, we think of Syria. But that's not where our casualties are coming from. On Friday, a gunman killed 3 people and wounded 9 more at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado. The suspect is white American Robert Louis Deere. When police apprehended Deere, he uttered one telltale phrase, "No more baby parts." People who have known or met Deere say he wasn't a regular churchgoer. But they also report that he believed devoutly in the Bible and that he claimed to have read it cover to cover. In an online forum, Deere apparently spoke of Jesus and the end times. He painted or posted crosses on at least 3 of his homes. Deere moved to Colorado last year from North Carolina, where he had been living. For 2 decades, the Tar Heel state has been a hotbed of religious extremism, fueled by clerics who preach holy war. The result is a stream of interstate terrorism. Satan, of course, speaks tongue-in-cheek, yet keenly encapsulates, through a list of domestic terror attacks carried out by North and South Carolinians, how immigration restrictions of any variety serve only to placate xenophobes. After all, Saudi Arabia didn't make the list, Israel didn't make the list, Afghanistan didn't make the list. Terrorism doesn't practice one religion, or have a single nationality. It doesn't have a specific appearance, gender, motivation, cause, or mindset. You can't fight terrorism by ignoring facts, and the fact is, we have our own terrorists. No matter how constrictive the restrictions on our borders get, even if Trump shut down immigration entirely, the United States creates terrorists at home and abroad at an alarming rate. A closed border won't change that. Indeed, the only way to lessen the chances a terrorist will attack on U.S. soil is for the U.S. to rein in belligerent, imperialist foreign policy, bring the military home, and use its bloated budget to begin patching the physical and emotional holes in this country. Banning legal immigrants only deepens those wounds.